Welcome to another Black Flicks and Chill recap. This movie summary is about the Marvel sequel called Black Panther Wakanda Forever, released in 2022. Sit back and relax as you are about to watch a Black Flicks movie recap that ends with the revealing of King T'Challa's secret.
Who did you see?
It begins with Shuri saying a short prayer to the Wakandan god, Bassett, before rushing into her lab to develop a cure for her brother, King T'Challa, who's battling to save his life. She's able to create an artificial heart-shaped herb, which is only 29.1% accurate, but before she can give it to her brother, he's already gone. Shuri, her mom, Queen Ramonda, and the elders perform the necessary funeral rites. After some singing and dancing, the whole town gathers around T'Challa's coffin to pay their respects and watch as a ship takes it to his grave. A year later, Queen Ramonda attends a United Nations summit where Wakanda is accused of not fulfilling its promise to cooperate with the other nations and share its natural resources. She argues that the reason why Wakanda doesn't share vibranium with other countries is because they know the evil these countries will do with it. A few days earlier, some French mercenaries had attacked the Wakanda Outreach Center for vibranium but were stopped by Okoye and the Dora Milaje. In the presence of everyone at the summit, Okoye brings the mercenaries who are in chains, while evidence of the French government's involvement in the operation is sent to each person's phone. Ramonda threatens severe action if any country pulls that stunt again. She tells them to look for vibranium outside Wakanda if they want it so bad. The American government later discovers vibranium buried in the Atlantic Ocean. The government officials and scientists are on a boat expedition to retrieve it when a group of unknown people start humming a strange tune which hypnotizes most of the passengers to drown themselves in the water. Dr. Graham, a scientist, and Smith, a soldier, are inside the boat and see everything going on from the cameras. They wear earplugs as protection. Dr. Graham requests for backup, saying she suspects they're being attacked by the Wakandans. While she and Smith try to sneak away, Smith sees his friend, Henry, unconsciously walking to the edge of the boat to drown himself. He fires a gun and Henry regains his senses. Before Henry can come down from the edge, something drags him into the water and drowns him. A group of blue mermen jump out of the water. One of them stabs Smith to death with a spear. Dr. Graham escapes to a nearby helicopter. While she's flying, she tries to tell the radio tower that it wasn't the Wakandans who did it, when her plane is dragged backwards by a supernatural force and drowned into the ocean. On the one-year anniversary of T'Challa's death,
Black Panther is a relic, Mother.
Queen Ramonda takes Shuri, who has been working non-stop since her brother's death, to the bush to help her heal. Ramonda tries to introduce Shuri to a ritual which helped her move on from T'Challa's death, but Shuri, who's a skeptic, doesn't believe in it and isn't interested. Ramonda starts a fire and brings out their funeral garments, which they ought to burn as part of their tradition. Shuri refuses to burn hers and says the only thing she's going to burn if she thinks too much about T'Challa is the whole world with everyone in it. Ramonda is about to tell Shuri something about T'Challa when a man with pointed ears and winged ankles comes out of the water. He introduces himself as King Koken, the feathered serpent god, who's also called Namor by his enemies. He says that the American government detected vibranium in his underwater nation, Talokan, with a machine built by an American scientist, and were about to mine it when he stopped them. He blames T'Challa for exposing vibranium to the world and compromising the safety of Talokan. Namor knows the Americans will return, and he believes the only way to prevent that will be to kill the scientist. He also believes Wakanda owes it to him to help him solve his problem. He asks Ramonda to provide him with the scientist and threatens war on Wakanda if she doesn't comply. Before Namor leaves, he warns them not to reveal his identity or that of Talokan to anybody outside Wakanda. He leaves the vibranium detector behind. Ramonda convenes her council and presents the matter to them. Some members believe it is too risky to go to war with another nation that possesses vibranium, but leader of the Jabari tribe, M'Baku, being brave and fearless as usual, suggests that they look for Namor and kill him. M'Baku convinces the queen that Namor is only going to keep requesting for more if they give him the scientist. Okoye asks for permission from the queen to take Shuri on a mission to retrieve the American scientist, promising to protect Shuri with her life. Against her better judgment, the queen allows Shuri to leave with Okoye. Okoye and Shuri meet up with CIA agent Ross, who informs them the American government suspects that Wakanda was behind the attack on the mining ship. They tell him they had nothing to do with it, but for their own safety, they cannot reveal the people who did it. They request for the scientist's location from Ross, and he gives it to them. To their surprise, the scientist is just a teenage college student, Riri Williams. Shuri volunteers to talk to Riri alone, and Okoye gives her 5 minutes. Riri tells Shuri that she only built the machine for her science project and didn't know the government was going to use it. When Shuri asks Riri to follow her to Wakanda, she refuses. Riri tries to leave the room but is intercepted by Okoye. When Riri insists on not going, they tell her a winged ankle merman is coming for her. Only then does she change her mind. Riri takes them to her garage to get her laptop. The police show up soon after and demand that they all surrender. Riri gives the other two her car to ride in while she wears an iron suit. Shuri suggests that she and Okoye split up, but Okoye refuses. The police burst into the garage. Shuri gives Okoye the slip and rides on a bike. The three of them head to Boston Bridge, and the cops chase after them. After escaping the cops, they are ambushed by some of Namor's soldiers. One of them, a huge merman named Atuma, faces off with Okoye and defeats her. Shuri begs Atuma not to harm Okoye or the scientist and requests to see Namor. Atuma gives her a breathing mask and takes her and Riri, who fell unconscious during the fight, inside the ocean. Okoye is left behind. The next day, CIA agents rush to the crime scene. Agent Ross is there and he finds Shuri's beads lying around. He quickly hides them before the director, Val Fontaine, sees him with them. Back at Wakanda, Okoye informs Ramonda and the council about Shuri's disappearance.
To retrieve our princess.
In her pain, Ramonda scolds Okoye for taking Shuri on the mission and strips her of her rank as the Durham Alleged General and kicks her out of the group. With the help of Shuri's AI, Grieve, Ramonda tracks Shuri's beads and calls it, hoping Shuri would answer. However, it is Ross who picks up. When Ross figures out that Shuri isn't at home, he asks Ramonda who kidnapped her. Ramonda refuses to answer, but instructs him to give her a heads up if the US decides to make any funny moves on Wakanda. Ramonda tries to track Shuri's earrings and finds out their last location was at the North Atlantic and she was abducted by people speaking Yucatec Mayan. She travels to Haiti to meet Nakia, T'Challa's ex, who has been outside Wakanda for 6 years. When asked why she didn't show up for T'Challa's funeral, Nakia says she couldn't handle the pain of saying goodbye to him. Ramonda asks Nakia to go on a secret rescue mission for Shuri. Shuri and Riri are in an underwater cave surrounded by blue maids. One of them gives Shuri some royal traditional clothes to wear and takes Shuri to see Namor. Nakia travels to a Mexican village to speak with an old woman who claims to have encountered Namor. The woman tells Nakia that they've been seeing Namor on the shores of a nearby beach. Namor gives his late mother's 16th century bracelet to Shuri. Shuri asks him how he has been alive since then, to which he replies how is never as important as why. Namor narrates the story of his people's origin. Initially, his people were Mayan farmers until Spanish colonizers came and took their land. They were confused and turned to their god, Chak, for a solution. In a vision, Chak revealed to a shaman the location of a plant growing out of a blue rock. The shaman prepared that plant into a drink. He gave it to everyone to drink, including Namor's mom, who was pregnant with him. He promised Namor's mom that he would be their first king. They all died and resurrected. This time they were blue and needed to breathe liquid oxygen. Namor was born and raised in water. He had the ability to fly and he aged slower than normal. His mother made him promise her he was going to bury her on her land after she died. When the time came, Namor and his soldiers took her to the land and saw Spanish colonizers beating slaves to stupor. He killed the colonizers, freed the slaves, and buried his mom. One of the colonizers, who was a friar, cursed him in Spanish before he died and called him Namor, meaning the child without love. Namor says he liked the name because he had no love for the world on land. Shuri asks him why he's telling her the story, and he says it's because he wants her to understand why he has to kill Riri. Shuri begs him to let her take Riri to Wakanda and promises to never let her leave, but Namor refuses. Shuri tells him to keep her as his prisoner instead and asks him to show her around Talokan. Namor gives Shuri a suit to wear and takes her on a tour. Shuri meets different sea creatures and people. Nakia goes to the beach and is able to track the location of Shuri's earrings at an underwater cavern. She gives Ramonda the update, and Ramonda instructs her to retrieve Shuri while she distracts Namor. Shuri admits that Talokan is a beautiful country filled with beautiful structures and people, but she cannot let Namor kill Riri. Namor explains that it isn't about Riri but the machine, which is a sign that the Americans are going to launch a stronger attack on Talokan. He says the only way he would spare Riri's life is if Wakanda teams up with Talokan to wage war on the world. When Shuri refuses, Namor threatens to kill Riri and plunder Wakanda. He tells Shuri that Wakanda doesn't stand a chance against Talokan. While he's talking, one of his maids tells him Ramonda has summoned him. During a meeting with some top CIA officials, Ross finds out the US is planning to attack Wakanda. He informs Ramonda immediately. Ramonda tells Namor that the Americans are blaming Wakanda for the mining ship attack, and if he doesn't release Riri and Shuri, she will tell the American government about his existence. Namor threatens to kill Shuri and Ramonda if she does that or if he sees anyone trying to rescue Shuri. Meanwhile, Nakia breaks into Talokan and kills a guard. Another guard grabs Shuri and places a knife at her neck. Nakia shoots her and frees Shuri. Shuri tries to save the guard's life because she knows her death will make Namor seek revenge. Nakia grabs her and Riri and runs off with them. Namor arrives shortly and finds out what happened. He assembles some of his warriors and prepares them to attack Wakanda. After arriving at Wakanda, Shuri asks the guards to seal every entrance to Wakanda and to be on high alert. With the help of water bombs, Namor breaks into Wakanda. His soldiers draw out the defenses from the palace, leaving Queen Ramonda and Riri alone. Namor heads to the palace and drowns Riri and the queen in a heavy flood. The queen regains consciousness while in the water and sees Riri sinking. She sacrifices her life by swimming to Riri's rescue and taking her to the surface while Namor watches. Okoye and Nakia arrive at the palace and try to revive both of them. While Riri wakes up, the queen dies. Shuri wails aloud, and Namor warns her he will return with his full army after a week and destroy the whole country if Wakanda does not join forces with Talokan. After Queen Ramonda's funeral,
which way is your heart leaning?
M'Baku tells Shuri, who's now the queen, that even though he promised T'Challa that he would advise and protect Shuri, he is in need of Shuri's counsel. When Shuri asks him why he needs the advice of a child that scoffs at tradition, he replies the world has taken too much from you for you to still be considered a child. M'Baku tells her some of her tribal elders want to move to Jabarland and be ruled by him instead. Shuri tells him she doesn't care whether he takes them in or not. Director Fontaine enters Ross' house and confesses she bugged the beads and had been listening to his conversations with the queen all along. She arrests him for betraying the US by revealing their plans to the queen. Shuri and Riri think of a plan to stop Namor. Riri notices that he always enters the water to take in oxygen at intervals during his battles. Shuri makes plans to convert her fighter jet to a drying chamber and put Namor inside to suffocate him. By analyzing Namor's mother's bracelet, which is also made from vibranium, Shuri is able to create a heart-shaped herb with a 98.7% accuracy. Nakia makes the herb into a drink and gives it to Shuri while summoning Ramonda's spirit. Shuri enters the ancestral plane and to her greatest surprise meets Eric Killmonger, her brother's arch-nemesis. She asks Eric how it is possible and Eric says she chose him in her subconscious. When Shuri denies it, Eric asks her why she chose it. Shuri says it's because she wanted to see her family, but Eric knows she's lying and says she never believed in the ancestral plane. Shuri admits she took it to be strong. Eric asks her why she needs the strength and she keeps quiet. Eric, who knows why, says she took it to avenge her mother's death, which is the same way he was trying to avenge his father's death in part 1. Shuri says she is nothing like Eric and he was nothing but a selfish king who wanted power for himself only. Eric says he was doing what needed to be done and he chose not to be a coward like the previous Black Panthers. He says if it wasn't for his actions, Wakanda wouldn't be protecting outsiders like Riri. Shuri blames him for the death of her mom and brother. Eric says he isn't responsible and their deaths were on them. He asks Shuri if she's going to be weak like T'Challa or if she's going to make the tough call like him. Shuri wakes up and when Nakia asks her who she saw, she says no one. Shuri is frustrated that none of her family members came. She discovers she has superhuman strength when she hits a mannequin. Shuri designs a Black Panther suit and goes to Jabarland to reveal herself as the new Black Panther to her people. M'Baku tests her strength with a game of armed power and she defeats him to everyone's excitement. She tells the people of her plan to draw Namor out of the Atlantic Ocean. M'Baku knows she wants to kill Namor and warns against it. Shuri asks everyone to excuse her and M'Baku. M'Baku tells her killing Namor will lead to an eternal war. She asks him if Ramonda's death was worth an eternal war. M'Baku says it was, but Queen Ramonda wouldn't want that. Shuri says Ramonda is dead and her expectations are dead as well. Shuri says all that matters is what she wants, and the only thing she wants is Namor's death. The next day, Wakanda soldiers move to a battleship. Nakia tells Shuri she can come live with her in Haiti after the war. She asks Shuri to tell her who she really saw in the ancestral plane. Shuri refuses to talk. Nakia warns her not to let vengeance consume her, but she says it already has. Did the Wakandans survive the war? Did Shuri assume her place on the throne? Did Namor die? Keep watching to find out. Namor is alerted of a machine detecting vibranium. When he and his soldiers check it out, the machine emits sonic waves, forcing them to move to the surface. The Wakandans, who have been waiting for them there, launch an attack. Riri lures Namor into the drying chamber jet and informs Shuri, who gets into the chamber with him. The rest of the Wakandan soldiers retreat after Namor's capture, but their ship is water-bombed by the Talakans, who launch a counterattack. Namor destroys the jet with his spear. Shuri asks Grieve to take the jet to a nearby desert and tries to stop him. Namor crashes the ship into the desert. Atuma and Okoye have a rematch on the ship. She beats him this time. Shuri beats Namor to a pulp. Namor grabs a spear and stabs Shuri with it. He tells her it didn't have to end like this and goes in search of water. While she bleeds, Shuri recalls the answer she gave Eric at the ancestral plant when he asked her if she was going to be like her brother. She recalls saying she wants to watch Namor beg for mercy while she watches him die. Shuri takes the spear out of her body and is healed by her suit.
Wakanda forever!
She corners Namor and burns him. While Namor struggles to breathe, Shuri grabs his spear and is about to kill him when she hears Ramonda's voice asking her to show mercy to Namor. Shuri asks Namor to yield and promises to protect Talakan from the US government. Namor hesitates at first, but a vision of his mother makes him change his mind. The remaining Wakandan soldiers are cornered by the Talakans. Before the Talakans can kill them, Shuri and Namor show up on a warship. Namor commands the Talakans to leave the Wakandans alone. Wakanda rebuilds from the damage. The heart-shaped turb is planted in the gardens again. Shuri bids Riri farewell and sends her back to the US. At the coronation ceremony, Shuri doesn't show up. Instead, M'Baku takes her place. A Talakan soldier expresses her disappointment to Namor about his surrender to the Wakandans. Namor explains that he made a smart move. He says Talakan is the only ally to Wakanda and is now stronger than ever. The surface nations will attack Wakanda, and when that happens, Wakanda will run to Talakan for help. While Ross is being transported to prison, Okoye intercepts the vehicle and takes him to Wakanda. Shuri goes to Haiti and does the ritual her mother introduced to her. She recalls memories with her brother and cries. Nakia introduces Shuri to someone special, her and T'Challa's son, Toussaint. Shuri is excited and confused. Nakia explains that T'Challa wanted him to grow up away from the pressures of the throne. She says T'Challa knew he was going to die but didn't want them to be at his funeral because he didn't want to expose Toussaint to the public yet. They held their own private funeral for him. Nakia says Ramonda met Toussaint before he died. After Toussaint and Shuri exchange pleasantries, he tells her Toussaint is his Haitian name. The movie ends with Shuri asking Toussaint his Wakandan name, and Toussaint introducing himself as Prince T'Challa, son of King T'Challa. This movie stars Letitia Wright, Angela Bassett, and Tenoch Huerta as the main characters, and was directed by Ryan Coogler. The original movie script was supposed to be about King T'Challa grieving about the 5 years he lost in the blip in Avengers Endgame. Unfortunately, plans changed after the actor, Chadwick Boseman, passed away from cancer. May he rest in peace. Thanks for watching. What was your favorite part of the movie? What do you think about Namor? Was he right or was he wrong? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more Black movie recaps like this.